So again, my name is Suyong Bian. I'm a faculty in the Educational Policy Study University of Park. So in this presentation, I'm gonna introduce how we try to evaluate effectiveness of our new learning modules. Dr. Yu already introduced my evaluation team, so I'm gonna skip this part. This is the outline of my presentation. So I'm going to start with the proposal of evaluation study, and then I'm going to introduce the assessment framework, and then I move to the item development procedures, and then I'm going to share some result from the some pilot study, and then I'm going to discuss on some the challenge that we have, and we're going to talk about the future plan. So our goal evaluation study is that to examine to what extent our new learning module effective to increase the student knowledge or awareness of the big data compared to conventional teaching method. So in order to achieve this goal, we propose to employ quasi-experimental design, which uses pre and post test. Either with or without the control group. I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the control group. But basically, we try to use quasi-experimental design to evaluate the effectiveness of our learning module. And we conducted a pre-post test only for the student who took the course using our learning module as a part of the curriculum. We don't have a control group yet, but in the future, we're going to definitely So assessment framework, basically, because of my background is K-12 educational policy, so we build on the Bloom's the definition of a cognitive level. So this is the taxonomy, the Bloom's. So basically, the bottom, very basal level of a cognitive dimension is the knowledge, and then understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating. We tried to measure all level of the cognitive dimension, but I'm going to share later. It's really quite challenging. So we kind of end up with just focusing on the testing the knowledge about the big data. When it comes to content domain, I'm going to also share some challenging about the content domain. For our evaluation study, we just focus on big data, social media, and the career path. I'm going to give you more detailed information. So when it comes to the big data domain, we developed the 6th item. And this is a kind of an example of the question. As you can see here, this is a very traditional kind of a quiz or question testing the knowledge about the big data. So I'm not going to read it all, but I will let you just read through and try to guess the right answer, okay?
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Alright, so let me move on. And next content domain is how big data applies to social media. When it comes to this domain, we developed the 3 items, and this is the 3 items. Things are, well, I mean, the font size is small, so I think the people back there are hard to see. Again, I mean, this is a more traditional way to testing. When it comes to big data career path, we developed the 4 items. I put here 3 out of the 4 items. Again, I'll let you read.
So what we're assessing here is, if I can interrupt you, that how well the students actually understand the materials we cover in the classroom, especially in terms of the online textbook we develop. So it's really focusing on the content we delivered in the class setting.
Right. So it's very traditional formative assessment. All right. Let me talk about how we develop the items. So our project team, led by the Dr. Yu and his student, wrote a number of items based on the contents of the e-textbook that he just talked about. And then we carry out the first pilot study in spring of the 2006. Basically, we let students in the one class to complete the pilot study. And then based on result from the first pilot study, and we tried to remove and revise 2 difficult items and 2 easy items. Okay. For example, this is one of the item that was tested in the first pilot study. So we asked which API. Well, I don't have any context analysis, so forgive me. But we asked which API stream for tweet would be best for analyzing a country opinions during a political debate. So this is a pre-test result, and this is a post-test result. Pre-test, that means that the student took a test before he learned about the big data. Post-test means that they took tests after they learned. So when you hear the answer is the public, right? So about the 70% student got an answer, even though they didn't took a course yet. And then about the 81% of the student got the right answer after they took the class. So actually, without taking courses about the big data, many of the students already know it, right? And this is a too easy item, right? So we tried to remove this item for the second item. So we went through this kind of validating the procedures for each items. And then we conducted the second pilot study. Why we have a second pilot study? I'm gonna share some later on. We have a lot of challenges, majoring the big data analysis. When it comes to assessment tool, we developed online pre and post instrument that evaluate the student knowledge about the big data using quadrants. And specifically, we ask each of the student to carry online cognitive testing, including a number of cognitive items before and after using our learning models. So pre-test also not only included the number of cognitive items, but also some background question about their demographic background and academic background. But when it comes to post-test, we include only cognitive items. When it comes to the second item, pilot study, we have 42 undergraduate students majoring either information science, technology, or security and risk analysis at Penn State Altoona campus here. So this is some demographic information. So among the 42 students, about 81 students were male, and only 90% of a female student. When it comes to race ethnicity, about the 74% is the Caucasian, whereas the 18% is the black, and about 8% is others. In terms of the major, about the 60% major in the security and the risk analysis, about the 26% major in the information science and economics. So this is some preliminary result from our second pilot testing. We asking students about the level of understanding of a big data analytics. The y-axis is a scale, like a 5-Likert scale. So 1 indicating very poor understanding, whereas 5 is a very advanced level of understanding. So before the student took the class, the average is like below the average, right? But after took class, well, overall is the average, right? And this change in statistically is significant. So there's some significant improvement in the level of understanding of the big data. That's really good news. As I talked about earlier, we have a 3 domain. So here this is the knowledge about the big data. So this is the y-axis, is the number of the correct item. So number 6, that means the student got all 6 correct answers, whereas 0 is none of them. Okay. So before a student took a class about the 2 points. So on average, the student got 2 correct answers out of 6. Okay. After the class, about the half. Well, still, many students still have some incorrect answers, but on average, there's a significant improvement, and this change is statistically significant. All right, so this is about the social media. This is a pre and this is a post result. We have 3 items, right? So on average, before student took the class, many of them did not answer the question. Did not have a correct answer. After class, unfortunately, still, they got wrong answers. So, and this change is statistically not significant. And this is also the case for big data career path. There's no statistically significant improvement. So we have some issue, social media and big data career path. So we try to modify the item testing those 2 domains. And this is very brief, the summary of our prior in the pilot study. I want to share some, some challenges that we had. Well, I joined this project because I thought, I could do, because, my research area is to evaluation. Right? We, implement school intervention, and then we, tested whether, this is school intervention really effective or not. I have done a lot of work on it. So I thought, well, it's easy, why not? But, as I, the more, it's really challenging. I mean, think about it, how we, can conceptualize and measuring big data. What does it mean we know big data? What dimension? To what degree? I mean, think about the math analysis, right? We know the what content domain, right? We have data, geometry, algebra. There's a very clear domain. But what about the big data? What are we talking about, right? So, I mean, it's really big challenging. And we have a look through try to find the literature about the measuring big data. But actually, to our best knowledge, there's none. There's no theoretical framework on content domain and the big data, the knowledge. So given this, it's really challenging to write an item that can measure above and beyond the knowledge. We want to measure, the apply knowledge about the big data into real world reasoning as well. But again, it's really challenging to write an item that measuring that part. And also, even measuring the basic knowledge about the big data is really, challenging, right? A sufficient number. We have very limited number of the items that test the knowledge about big data, but it should be more items, allowed to more accurately measure the level of knowledge about the big data. Through the pilot study, we found that some of the items actually did not function. We thought this is a relatively good item, but it turns out actually didn't function well. A majority of students failed to have correct answer. So that's a real issue. We realized still the career path and the social media, a lot of students still didn't got right answer even after they took a class. So we have still many difficult items. Matter of fact, 9 out of 12 items have less than 50% correct answer rate. And then we have a very small number of samples. We have only 42. So that's really issue. So I mean, we gotta increase the end, to better validate the items. Finally, this is the what I kind of realized. We talked about the big data. I mean, this is a really 21st century skill, right? But the way we evaluate the knowledge about big data is very 20th century way. So there's some a discrepancy between the conceptual framework and method and so on. So I think we gotta be more innovative to measure big data. Right? I mean, this is the kind of a task that we have to address later on. So in the future, definitely we gotta finalize assessment the tool, and then we gotta conduct a main study, and then for the main study, definitely we gotta find a control group so that we can better evaluate the effectiveness of our deep learning. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Any question, comments?
Questions, comments? Oh, there might be one question over there.
Yes.
So, and if I understand correctly, you had some items that you asked initially that you eliminated because the group of 40-some students
Right.
did too well. One of the questions in my mind was, because these students were ILT and outside students, would they have known them because of their prior background in those fields? And if you had asked them to a more generic audience, would that have still been specialized knowledge in terms of big data from those audiences?
Right. I think that's really a good question. So, I mean, that's why in a pilot study, I mean, the pre-post test, we ask student about some previous scenarios about the big data, some background, academic background. So for main study, we're gonna use that kind of information. So as I mentioned here, we're gonna use this kind of information to better evaluate effectiveness of our running model. Statistically, we can control for what students already know about the big data. So that's why we try to include this kind of item, asking some background in academic background and demographic background. So when we statistic testing, we control for student prior knowledge about the big data. Did I answer the question?
The issues that you had with, for example, social media, I'm struggling with something totally unrelated to what I'm essentially. So that is, in my field, we're accounting, we have a technique for accounting for some kind of transaction. But underlying it, there's some theory that explains when
That's
you
right.
use this technique.
Right.
The students want to go right to the technique and skip all the part. No matter how many times I go over it, they skip all the part about when you use it, right?
Right.
And so I'm wondering if there's something conceptually similar going on with the questions about social media. I want to get to the heart of how do I do this thing and skip over career connections and other soft things.
I think that's a really good question, but I don't think I can answer the question.
And I guess the question is, how do you deal with that?
Right.
So if I just add a few things to Professor Byung's answer, we do have information in the learning module going over the conceptual pieces. So they are exposed to those, but whether
But they were just learning them.
whether they learned anything out of that or not, that's a question. I mean, we don't
That's
know.
what I'm having trouble with.
So the trouble is always somehow having them, do the work. So, any other questions? So I think we're the only thing between you and the lunch, but I'm going to take just a few more minutes.
Right.
Would you like
I think,
to?
I realized that, again, I didn't have any knowledge about the big data and this kind of a project. This is my first time to collaborate with the faculty in the ISD, but I realized evaluation study itself like a multi-million-dollar project. I mean, it's really, really challenging at the same time. It's really, really worthy investigating.
So that-
Again, there is no study done how we measure the big data analysis. what do you know about the student knowledge about the big data?
So that's next, NSF proposal
Yeah, I think so.
and a new paper.
So we're gonna work on, so don't write. Yes.
I'll be presenting in a little bit, but hopefully this might help answer some of your question. I follow, the ebook and the guidance, and I think the interesting part when it comes to social media is that they're doing it every day of their lives,
Right.
and then when you start telling them there are consequences and information, data being taken from all the social media things that you do, and companies are using that information.
Oh, those are the nature of the items.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So again, we use like a 20th century assessment tool, but just pre and post. But we know nowadays, there are a lot of things occur during the classroom. There are a lot of learning process. I mean, we can ask a student write like in a diary or essay to document every day activity they doing. I mean, those kind of information may allow us better measure about the student knowledge about data, right? So in that way, that's why I'm saying we got to use 21st century evaluation tool in order to measure 21st century the skills. So.
Can I
Yes.
add? Yeah, so because what I'm thinking is that kind of storytelling is a big piece, especially in terms of assessment. And one of the innovations could actually come from developing instruments, especially regarding assessing how effectively or how well this particular student tells his or her story.
Right. The problem is that even for the storytelling, I think we gotta develop some rubrics to evaluate the quality of the storytelling. Is it like a 5 scale or a 10 scale? So that we gotta quantify the quality. So I think, but that's a really challenge how we can qualify, right?
Yeah, always. But interestingly enough, the project is on data science, so I'm sure we'll be able to eventually find a way. But thank you so much, Professor Byung.
Okay.
Yeah,
One
and
more question.
yeah, any more questions? Oh, one more question.
Yes.
About the assessment, the objects to the questions. Usually the instructor are creating questions, but I've been thinking that like nowadays young generations, their way of thinking would be different from us. So in that sense, like if we can create some kind of paradigm, such as like ask the students to create their own questions
That's a really good
and
question.
collect all of those questions and some kind of calibrating those and set certain criteria, question selection criteria, and make a pilot set of questions and testing those and having a brainstorming session with the students.
I think that's a really, really good point. I think definitely, future study and project should take into account that kind of the aspect. But my understanding, I might be wrong, but my understanding is that we, a group of students, developed this item. I mean, student wrote an item, and then Dr. Ryu reviewed those items and selected those items. Is it right?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that kind of a procedure is kind of partially addressed your, I think, your point.
But there were only a few students.
Right, only a
yeah,
few.
in this case, for part of our project. So if we broaden the scope a little bit, maybe
Right.
we'll get better quality
Right.
questions. Here is Mr. Larry Garvin, and he's our visiting faculty, visiting instructor of information sciences and technology, and he's gonna talk a little bit about what his experience was like when it comes to actually using the materials we developed so far.
So a couple quick things as we were talking about unique facts. I guess I learned one today. So far, I'm the only faculty member here at Altoona that didn't get hired by Bill.
And in this room today.
In this room today. So that's one. And then a couple of neat things. Both my mentors are here today. Smooth Dave has been kind of invaluable to me, learning. I've been teaching now for about 4 years. And then I have a great mentor with JR. I was actually his TA starting off. And then my first class that I ever instructed was JR's class. I like to think I improved on your class. So just a couple of pieces of information. And then the other thing I learned is I'm on my way with Michael as far as teaching classes. I think I'm up to 10 new classes that I've taught so far. So a couple of interesting facts. But anyways, so again, my presentation is going to be really on user experience. So we've been talking a lot about this ebook that has been created, and talk a little bit about how I implemented that and some of the conclusions that we had. So the first thing I like to do is really just tell a quick story. So why do we take this approach? And I guess probably the first thing is I was teaching a new course. I was a little scared. Lloyd already teaches the course and does a fantastic job. I knew I wasn't going to be able to compete with him. And then luckily, JR was my saving grace, but I was also his guinea pig in a way as well. And said, why don't you try using big data? So because this is a new class, I decided to try a new method. And then as we've been kind of talking already, is the needs of businesses, how they're structured, how they're using data is changing, right? So this class I'm referring to is IST 210, which is a data course. So some of the changes that we were talking about is not only is it SQL, it's no SQL, and then there's transition into big data. And all of this goes hand in hand with something that's called the nexus of forces. So has anyone heard of this nexus of forces? Is this a new concept, something? What the nexus of forces is really this concept from Gartner. Anyone here heard of Gartner? Okay. So it's really these four things. So it's the convergence of social media, mobility, so able to do work anywhere, whether it's with your phone, laptop, cloud computing plays a huge role in this. This all ties into big data and creating new opportunities. Nexus Forces is very applicable when it comes to social media and enterprise spaces. So regardless of size of an organization, whether it's for educational purposes, for business purposes, the nexus of forces, big data, can be used. So let's talk about these things. Again, mobile devices. I see everybody here already today. You have your mobile device, right? You can't live without it. And then one of the things you do on that mobile device is social media, right? So whether you're clicking on things because you like it, you don't like it, finding news, information. And again, as I mentioned earlier, one of the presentations is students are doing this regularly and to kind of get a better understanding of how people are using this information as data.
Please try again.
The next part, big data, that's what we're here for. And the cloud really enables all of this, right? So now we have the ability to actually store all this data and be able to use it quickly with agility. So the delivery changes that I made for IST 210. So I'm still teaching relational database management. So we're still teaching that. That's kind of the core of the class, really the first half of the semester. Then we did a transition into no SQL, and then I devoted the second half of the semester to the ebook that you guys have created. Benefits of this change. So I think there's a larger spectrum of what data and how it's being used, right? So it's not just relational data, no SQL, and again, big data. It's more relevant in today's world. I think that's kind of why we're here talking about it. And my opinion, the last 2 bullet points, I think it prevents the class from being stale. So again, I just want to put command control. I felt there was better opportunities to take advantage of that. And I think it's more fun, and you'll see some of the things that we talk about Ilva, did you have fun in the class, Ilva?
Yeah.
All right. So, again, the transition from relational database management systems, we did the NoSQL. Spent like a week or two on it, and I think the interesting part was the history of it. Both Google and Amazon with their hashtag, not only SQL, to kind of give like a history of how this was all created. And then we touched lightly on database as a service. And most of you probably know this is one of the real transitions where we're getting is these platforms as a service, right? Software as a service, database as a service. And during that class, again, we start to talk a little bit about what tools are available in the families for this database as a software. And those are the four main types: your document database, graph, key value, and the wide column stores. So again, just touching on these things, not diving in too deeply, but giving a feeling of what's out there. So after we go through that, we transition in actually the big data. So this is where we kind of get our definition for the class of what big data is. So we use the 4 V's. I think that was one of the questions in that you had. So volume, velocity, variety, and value. And then because of my background as an enterprise architect, I kind of talk about kind of the standard benchmarks, I believe, from IBM and I believe it might be Cisco, don't quote me on that, but actually how to implement big data. Because we were talking before about big data is you don't want it just for the accounting department, the marketing department. You want to have an entire architecture and framework so all departments, the entire business can take advantage of using big data. And then we talk about how do you implement that. So you're going to create this roadmap from a transition of where you currently are, your present state, how you're collecting and storing your data. The roadmap takes you to that future state. And you're going to create that. Week 2, so now that we have this foundation of actually what big data is, the next experience we want to offer is why do I want to have a career in big data? Something that's very valuable for me is after we've gone over this career path section, students came up to me and said, you know, I'm really interested in this for a number of reasons. But so we changed, again, I think it was a little bit of the highlight of this whole big data ebook. They learned big data is a broad field. There's a lot of different options out there. And regardless of organization, industry, and academia, again, there's a spot for you. And then we talk about all the different specialities that professionals have in the field. So whether it's more on the technical side, more on the analytical side, something in between, lots of opportunities. Now with this kind of broad and vague strokes that we've taken so far, there's a lot of questions. So why should students choose a career in big data? As JR mentioned earlier today, with the rise of this, there's going to be a shortage of people out there in that. So for students that are out there, there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of your skills and knowledge in big data. And then the last two things there, where are the jobs now, where are they going in the near future? We talked about that, and then this slide here, I like to show the class, it gives you a variety of where these jobs are in the industry. So it's everywhere. And then this is always, in my other class for kind of like before Thanksgiving, I like to give the students the opportunity to kind of when you're at the Thanksgiving table to, you know, someone asks you, well, why are you taking security risk analysis? And this always talk about, well, it pays a lot, right? So the same thing with big data. The forecast is the opportunities in this field pays very well. So the conclusion I have for week 2 is career paths available in big data continue to grow. So there's a shortage in these professionals that are needed for these positions. And then what are your characteristics that you're actually going to need to have in this field? You're going to be a good communicator. You're going to have knowledge of the big data concepts. And you'll be able to, agility really means kind of transition, be able to adapt to this new, ever-changing field. And you need to have technical skills as well. Last two, big data professionals are the bridge between raw data and usable information. I'll save my thoughts on that for maybe later. And students should have the skills to manipulate data at the lowest level, and they must know how to interpret its trends and patterns. Easy example I can say to that is, let's say you're a shoe company, you post a picture on social media of this red and black shoe, you get a lot of likes. Companies can instantly take advantage of this information, whether they need to make more, what type of stock they have, was it a good idea to have this color. So that's what we're talking about, is this low-level, simple like on a social media, and how that's going to transition what a company's actually going to do. The third week, again, we're following the ebook here, is the applications of big data analytics in the use of social media. So this is just the example that I talked about. So examine how, why social media has become so popular. Yes?
Maybe you covered it in chapter 1, or maybe you talked about this. Do the students even know what OLAP is, what an OLAP cube is? They don't.
Yeah. We don't.
The problem I'm finding here in implementing this is that they don't have any idea of how else to treat. I mean, you can go through relational stuff, right? But they don't get a concept of how difficult it is to apply the relational models to huge volume of data.
Yeah.
And if they don't appreciate what OLAP is, right, and trying to get information using OLAP, I don't think they can truly appreciate these other approaches.
Yeah, I think that would be a great thing to add to the ebook. Again, I mean, I think the purpose of this is a 200-level course. So we're just trying to lay this foundation of what big data is, how they're using it in their lives, career opportunities, and so on. But I think that would be great to kind of further cement all this.
So they don't know what a data warehouse or a data mart is.
Well, they should know a little bit about those, but
That would have been introduced
Yeah.
before they got to that.
Yeah, so we talked about some review case studies in this week, and then really, again, this is an introduction to many of the concepts. So this section right here might be perfect for what you're describing. The information from social media can actually be broken down into two main categories. So again, it's your hard measurables, structured data, and then more of your emotions, descriptions, the emojis, thumbs up, hearts, things like that. So good analysis demonstrates how information spreads, can show businesses what's working or not. So again, in my shoe example, and then the three types of data collection: traditional, structured, unstructured. So again, going over a lot of this in week 3. Then the conclusion. Again, you have a further understanding of how social media has made a big impact on the way we connect, how companies use it, how education uses it. And there's really an endless stream of data available for almost any purpose out there. Week 4, we move into the simulation-based physics. So the video that we saw earlier today, we actually use Blender as one of the class projects. And it's interesting because some of them take to it very quickly, and others get frustrated by the mass amounts of things that you can actually do with it. So I usually have them do 2 of them. The first one was the bouncing ball, which I think they pick up in about a half hour. And then I give them a choice of whether they want to do a waterfall or like a ball through a wall, breaking that. So again, this week really touches on that simulation-based. Yes?
So I think we should mention that these labs, Blender labs, are already there. We developed the labs, so they're ready-made. You can actually use the labs. It's already available.
And are you going to show the ebook in closer detail, or?
I mean, later maybe we can show them the website, and
Okay.
maybe you can get in there and show
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
So again, these simulations can be used, fluid dynamics, aerodynamics, climate science, even though that didn't seem to work too well here in State College. I thought it was going to rain, it was beautiful. Soft body physics, thermodynamics. And I like talking about this because I have a lot of car students that like cars. I'm also the advisor for the car club here at Altoona. And again, this is a simulation test of aerodynamics. So this is something that you can use actually, and they kind of enjoy that. So what are the pros and cons to moving away from your standard physics to simulations? So the pros, again, for your traditional approach, it's incredibly accurate, right? But the cons are the ineffectiveness of its predictions. It's expensive, right? Smashing cars, airplanes, buildings. So it's much easier to do a computer simulation for a number of reasons. It's cheaper, it's faster, it's profound. But then the downside of that is the con would be the inaccuracy of it. Again, if you're trying to simulate how you're going to demolition a skyscraper, how accurate is that? It's difficult to implement. So the conclusion of this week is by using these big data related systems, engineers and scientists have been able to more easily design cars, airplanes, and other vehicles. So again, that's a touch on our everyday lives. Yes?
One other thing you may want to add in that would relate more to students. I taught a class on virtual worlds.
Okay.
The physics engine, which is behind any virtual world, any computer game, is what you're describing. I think if you could relate it to World of Warcraft or some other game that they're familiar with, and say, hey, all the physics that's going on behind the scenes. When a bomb explodes, it has to basically deal with big data.
Right.
Right? Every little particle has umpteen calculations that have to be done with it and tracked its position, et cetera, et cetera. I think it would also, that's a possible way to append this.
I like it.
Physics engine.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so then this is the one I was talking about, more fun for the students. Week 5, we talked about big data and how to find love. So I opened up the class. How do you find a girlfriend? How do you find a boyfriend? Are you using Tinder? Are you using Match.com? Whatever you're using. And none of them rose their hands. So I don't know if I believe them or not. But again, because of social media, because of big data, dating world has changed dramatically, right? So it's a little bit easier to find a suitable mate by using big data, putting in some information of, do you like movies, do you not, what do you like to do on the first date? And on a serious note is these online dating services are really taking advantage of big data. So depending on the number of questions that are asked, and they're in here, not today, but in this week, there's actual numbers, depending on the success rate of marriages, of how this big data is being helpful to people having relationships. So again, it's all big data driven, based on questionnaires. So the conclusion, the dating world's changed, right? So what's the overall experience that in my opinion, students became more knowledgeable of the total spectrum of data collection. I think that was the real goal of this. There's more out there than just relational database models. I think from this new experience, they're better prepared for the workplace and what their needs are, right? Then we opened up their eyes to what the job possibilities are out there. Again, took a lot of pride in the fact that students were coming up to me and asking more about this and found a lot of interesting. And again, how big that is affecting their lives currently.
Yeah, so just to show you what we were talking about earlier, right there you see these sections. This one is about simulation, and then at the bottom you see tutorials, physics simulation using Blender.
JR, in week, I don't know if it's week 2 or week 3,
Yeah.
there might be mention of what he was referring to about a gaming company.
Sure. Yeah.
And I can't remember which week
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, but we can trace it back and definitely see if there is a way to factor some of these things we talked about into the ebook. But here you can see the tutorials. See the tutorials? Tutorial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have all the Blender tutorials, and I'll open up one of those. And as you can see, we have all the labs pretty much developed. So that's what Larry was talking about. So I just wanted to show you this. And our next speaker is Professor Jang-Gyu Lee from University of Bridgeport.
Okay, it's my great pleasure to be here to present about our summer work last year with a high school student. At the time, we asked Professor Yu to use the part of this project, which is in your tutorial. I think the tutorial number 4, Twitter, the big data analysis. So I'd like to, in this presentation, I'd like to, actually, first reason I'd like to advertise the summer camp. Then the second part, how we work together to adapt his tutorial for the high school student. Before we start, so I'd like to little bit provide the background of this project, this summer camp, then it will be easier to understand how we are going to use the prep, the part of the tutorial to this summer camp or in any other area. So, as I introduced in the morning, I'm a professor in the computer science department. I mentioned my first memorial thing is I was born in 1969. Then until 2000, I think that is probably 12. So I got the tenure, then promoted to the associate professor. That is the second. So the memorable thing. So until that time, during my assistant professor, I tried to all my activity to get tenure. So when I submit the proposal, so I think about how can I get the evaluate and get the benefit to get the tenure, something like that. And submitting paper, I try to submit the paper to the conference or journal that can be that can make the accomplishment better and better. Then after I got tenure, I'm a little bit relaxed. Then, I'd like to focus on only something. Getting the project, getting the fund, okay, then to support myself and my student and so on. Then the third memorable thing in my life was the last year I got the full professorship finally. Then I thought about what am I going to do after I got the full professorship. Then mostly until I got tenure and something the associate. I think about myself and how to survive here, something like that. Then after I got the full professorship, then what am I going to do? Then my answer was, I need to serve for my community and using my expertise. Then how can I do that? Then at the time, so I met several parents who need my advice. Their children are very interested in the computer science. So they started from the gaming, just like many other kids. Then they started attended the robotics camp or the something Scratch program and provide by the several the community, or sometimes summer camp is very, very expensive, and some of them are the 5,000, 6,000, the 1 or 2 weeks, such as the computer science programming camp. And then also some of them are very good. They try to do something research on the computer science, but around in the area that we have, for example, the Yale University. So Yale University would like to invite the high school students who are interested in such a computer science, but most of them are related to the bioinformatics, biotechnology, something like that. But it's not much focus on the computer science subject. So at that time, I decided why not offer such the summer camp for the high school student. But it's not funded by any other organization or the government agency. I don't want to limit my, so it's fully volunteer. At the time, I don't have to worry about the payment or whatever. So the full 100% the free, the summer camp. But quality is like the 5,000. The level of the summer camp. So I asked the Professor Liu, why not contribute this work to this one, and also call for many other colleagues. Based on my networking, then contribute. So some of the professors donate their project, including the Professor Liu. So in this presentation, I try to little bit talk about how it works. But mostly advertising the 2017 summer camp. If we know any the good candidate of the high school student around the New York area, so then it will be good for us. Okay, so before we start, I know the Professor Yu and this project is not focusing on the computer science, but the summer camp started from the problem of such statistics in the computer science in high school. So do you know how many the high school students we have in the United States? Total, I think from K to the 12, it's around 50 million. So I think around 50 million, including the public school as well as the 50 million, 50 millions the student. Divided by 12 or 13, it's around 4 million. So then multiply by 4, fresh to the senior, so around 16 the millions of high school students. Then do you know how many of them are taking the computer science AP? Calculus is definitely highest one, but computers, even though it's right now, somebody says it's a boomer in computer science because of the data, the science, the data analytics, but it's still around 2,000, 20,000, 20,000, yes, 2,000. So 2,000 is way below. So compared to the other, especially if we take a look at such gender and it's like the female students are really minority. So in this summer camp, we try to focus on how to encourage the girls to involve in the computer science project, and then focusing on the minority to be involved in the really the practical hands-on the computer science. So this camp is not just general like the Scratch programming or the just for fun. Instead, we try to recruit the high school students who are really interested in the computer science major, at least taking the AP computer science after they complete this computer science. So last year, we offered the Young Data Science Summer Camp for high school at my the institution, because I don't have to pay. So my dean allowed whatever you want, you can use any facility in the School of Engineering. So we use our computer lab as well as other facility. So it's free, and actually recruit the volunteer to teach. So from the PhD student. So those are very good at the programming and so on. So then we generously the school donate the lunch. So even the lunch is free, but this year it's not free. So because of freezing of a lot of budgetary issue, but anyway, most of them are the free. And the main goal of this project is expose the computer science actually to the high school student. So last year we offered that the summer camp for 2 weeks from the July 11th to the 22nd. And the curriculum consists of anyways computer science, the summer camp. So we offer the Java and Python. They have a little bit background in the object-oriented program Java, but they didn't take the CSAT yet. So they have they know the little bit, but the Python no. Nobody took the Python class before. So our goal was at the time that by teaching 1 week the Python class, then they try to be able to complete the small project. So like for example the tutorial 4, so social media data analytics. So by collecting the data set from using the API, then applying the simple statistical algorithm like the summation or average and so on, then make the graph. So that is it looks like the simple, but for those who do not have such a background, it's not that simple. But it's already done by the Professor Liu at the Penn State University. Then he already had all the data set and solution, but we do not open to the student, but we encourage the students to the step by step. So then for the project topic, so we focusing on the data analytics and including some statistical approach and the data mining we taught, but I think most of the students didn't understand the data mining details, but mostly statistical approach. So last year the main theme was the social media data analytics, including the Professor Liu's project. So these are the participants. So this is me. So and there are 3 instructors from my department. 2 of them are there is one missing. The instructor he is also the PhD student, and then we have the master student who he taught the Python program. Then there are TAs who can help because most of the participant high school students didn't have a background strong the experience on the programming. So each of TA is assigned to each group, the team, then they have. Then these are the participants. So some of them are from New York and New Jersey. That surprisingly, they commute 1.5 hours in the morning to come to the food sport. So and they actually do later smartly the carpool. But anyway, so with the help of their parents, so it was very successful. So, but half of them are from the America. Then these are the accomplishments after the summer camp. One of the students was the finalist of the inter-science fair, which is one of the most difficult science competition in high school. And the 3 groups attended the regional IEEE conference hosted by my university, and they won the best poster and the 2 honorable mentions, compete with the undergraduate student. Then actually this photo was taken at the IBM, the T.J. Watson. So also some of the scientists at Watson, they donate to my class. So they have the tour to the Watson computer. Actually, it's just a computer, but it was nice, the trip. Okay. And right now, I know one of the students admit to the Northeastern University, the computer science major after the summer camp this year. But I didn't collect all the information about it. Okay. Then a lot of people have this one, including the Professor Liu. So these are the roughly schedules. So we taught the Python first week. It's a 2 weeks program. So first week we taught the Python, and another one is the Java, 2 main program. Then during this data analysis time, I introduced the the project. So like the Twitter, what is the big data analytics on the social media data? So based on the given tutorial by the Professor Yu. And the second week focus on the project. So I didn't expect whether the high school student complete the project or not before I started this summer camp. But surprisingly, after the 2 weeks, the summer camp, they can actually the 3 out of 4 successfully finished one team. Their result was not good, but they learned a lot. So these are the overall. The schedule is a little bit tight schedule, but it's only the 2 weeks. But surprisingly, they finish it successfully. So regarding to such a project, the project topics are two. There were 4 projects at the time. The one of them from the big data, the education, the group by Dr. Liu. Another one is from the Financial University, Dr. Kang, and 2 of them are from the research group. So these are the social network analysis US senator from the Dr. Kang, Professor Kang from Financial State University. This is from my group, and identifying the popular user and project. There is no project 3. Project 4 is for the differential user, the social network. So it's from my group, and this one is from the Dr. Liu. So social media monitoring for detecting malicious Twitter users. Then this one is the top best poster from the regional I2 conference. These are the students who did this project. Then this is the project scope donated by the Professor Liu. Okay. So at the time, actually, Dr. Liu has all the solution, even the coding and everything, but we don't open. Instead, we provide the such information. Then one more thing is one of the students of the Professor Liu, so Brian. So Brian, actually the Ryan. Yeah, Ryan. He communicates with the student during the project time. If in case they have the question about this project, then they communicate directly. CC to me and the Professor Liu, but they communicate through the email, then they can solve the problem. And also we provide all the reading material related to this project, and also some data set, the sample data. First, I think we provide the sample data set, but eventually they collect the data set using the Twitter API. So detailed the project scope is actually on the website. Is the project website is the tutorial 4 number 4. So we just follow that. Then, so these are the output of their project. So I will show you their presentation slightly after the presentation. Okay. Then after the summer camp, we evaluate this one. Then the most of them are satisfied with, especially parents is the one. And from students, they complain it's a little bit tough because it's not easy to recruit all the students at the same level. So some of them, they list a bunch of their experience, but it's more like the robotics, like the Lego programming, like that. So, but we focus on only the program language part. So, then, actually, they want the AP, but when I checked the recently, so not many of them. Actually, to take the AP exam, they do better have the school should have not should, but they do better take the AP class. It's not easy to study by themselves, but within 2 weeks, actually we cannot cover each and every topic of the CSAP. So it's actually less than that. And so then I think the main problem of this summer camp is actually it's free. Because of this, it's not easy to advertise this one. So I'm working with some organization so that this is one of the reasons. If you know any or any relative or colleague who has a high school student that are interested in the computer science, is introduced in this summer camp. And also I really emphasize on the hands-on exercise like the Twitter data analytics. But it's not easy to find such probably it's the same problem of this project. So those who do not have the background in computer science, it's not easy to understand what is a big data and how to use the Hadoop and the MapReduce programming. What is every semester there are new technology on the big data. So I'm offering the big data course. Like every semester I need to change at least half of my course material. Like nobody uses right now the MapReduce programming in their practical implementation. Instead, they are using Spark. What is a Spark? After I cover the Spark, then there is a new technology and so on. Especially for those who do not have such a background, like the high school student or the physics and the other subjects, it's not easy to make. It's not easy to find such the material. So I think that this kind of a project will be very, very helpful to adapt to the real practical hands-on exercise. These are the main the problem of this summer camp. So 2017 this summer I tried to offer the project again, but this last year I focused on the big data, especially social media data analytics. But this year, by following the major trend of the computer science, it will be the machine learning. So we will address the problem of the deep learning in this the summer camp. So this is advertised in the Korean newspaper. And you can find more information about this summer camp. And
why do you teach Java and Python, the together?
the Java
short
is
time, yeah.
So the reason why is I select the two languages. Python is for data analytics, for the data science. The Java is, I believe, to understand computer science, computer architecture, C or C++ is the best way. But it's not easy for the beginning level of including the freshman level of computer science. Based on my experience, and there are a lot of even the pedagogical research paper like for the computer science curriculum. Still, the Java is the one of the first language to learn. So that is the reason I select the two of them.
Is there any on-campus housing available for students beyond just the metro area?
My university will not. So I'm focusing only the free, so no payment. Then that will be easy to manage.
Even if the parents had to pay, there isn't anything.
Then if anything payment is involved, it will be very, very complicated. But if they want to stay outside the campus, it's totally their responsibility. Homestay, Airbnb, or whatever. So some of them would like to donate some of the money to invite, but if the monetary problem is involved, it's really complicated, a lot of paperwork, so I refuse such a thing that fully volunteer the free summer camp. I believe that still the quality is 5,000 level. Yes.
Have you worked with the Computer Science Teacher Association locally?
That's the next thing. So right now, to stabilize such a summer camp, I focus on the students who are really interested in the computer science or a little bit background. Then eventually, what we want is the teacher as well as the student together as a group so we can admit the teacher as a pair, teacher and student, something like that. But I didn't contact the computer science. I know that organization, but didn't contact. But
because they can send students to you. Basically, they can nominate students for your camp.
Maybe too many students.
Yeah. You can start charging them then.
Until that time, the more important thing is right now stabilize the summer camp. To do that, the first priority is the curriculum and content. Then I'm not fully the trained to make such a material for especially high school. Instead, I can get the benefit of such a the use project. So if there exists such a the hands-on exercise, we can adapt to the such as
I went to cyber running workshop this year.
Yes.
So they have computer science the groups.
Yes.
They are very interested in this kind of the project, especially K to
Yes.
12. So I think you can get the some funding the opportunities
So
from the NSF.
probably
Yeah.
that I attended the CyberGen. So CyberGen probably is the similar.
Similar,
Yes.
yes.
The project that give the I think the 5K to the 10K the month I think the 100. I'm not sure so then actually the Dongwon introduced that the CyberGen. I actually followed a lot of structure from the CyberGen. Yeah. But as I mentioned, it's even though cent of money involved, it will be really a lot of paperwork and office work. So that is the reason. Until stabilized, I try to focus on the free but the stronger the contents. Yes.
I think it's an awesome opportunity for high school students to be able to take advantage of that. And it's interesting looking at the AP statistics that you have up there.
Yeah.
Having kids that have gone through the high school system, there are 20 plus AP classes offered at our high school, but not computer science. So I don't know that it's for lack of desire that students are taking AP computer science.
Yes,
I think
that's
it's
true.
I think
That's
it's lack of
yeah.
availability.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to reach out to the educators to
Yes.
get them passionate about offering it.
Also, hopefully this kind of the project can be the use for the self-studying of those who are really interested, especially computer science. They try to solve such a problem by themselves, like taking some of the online material. Yeah, I know a lot of the high school students are taking the course from the Khan Academy and the others online material. Even though some of them are taking from the MIT the courses, then they learn by themselves. But if we provide such a little bit the structure, that will be huge benefit. But yes, that is one of the problem in even the Connecticut. Connecticut has offered in the public school. They offer the consumer science or traditional such a thing, but even the board of education, they are not much interested in the computer science. It looks like they need the French instead of the computer science language. Really, that's true in my area. So not many schools are offering the AP computer science. Even there are many universities at the high school where there's absolutely no IT or computer science courses. The only thing is just the library, like how to use the office. Like